May. You know, I was kind of surprised it took this long to get someone who I believe belongs in the average tier, but I think we're there. May's average. So I know a lot of people think May is brain dead because spray, you don't have to aim that much. But I mean, let's be real. You're not using May effectively if you're just spraying people who come up to your face and just pressing ice block whenever you're about to die. You will not do well on May if you can only do that. You will do well on May if you get creative with your wall placements to actually completely screw people over and deny their escape routes. And you will do well on May if you can land good icicle headshots. And I think that's relatively difficult. After all, it is a projectile which has a slow travel time, and on top of that, it has a delay on it being fired, which you have to factor in when you start aiming. As well as that, it can be really difficult to use her ult effectively because it can be eaten by abilities like D.Va's Defense Matrix, which is difficult to play around, but on top of that, you need to throw it towards the enemies to actually, get it to hit them, and you need to get it in a good spot on the map for them to not be able to run out of it. Very often, in my experience, you usually want to try and throw it past the enemies and have it land just behind them, so that they can't run out easily. However, that is extremely difficult if their tank has the ability to eat a projectile, and most tanks do. Orisa, Sigma, D.Va, all these tanks have abilities that could eat your ultimate if you're not careful, if you want to go for that strat. So overall, there is a decent amount of skill to May, but the reason why I still put her in average is overall she is still a character who you can get by on without having great aim, and while yes, creative wall placement is something that theoretically can take an insane amount of skill, most of the time, creative wall placement means bait the tank into a corridor and then cut him off from his supports and murder him while he can't get back. And don't get me wrong, that's not easy, but let's not pretend it's hard. Moisey. Mercy is... Oh, am I going to give another spicy take? I also think Mercy's harder than Alari, honestly. I don't know, am I going too far here? Here's the thing, don't get me wrong, Guardian Angel movement isn't as hard as it used to be now that it's an intended mechanic rather than a movement tech. But it's still something which requires you to think a whole lot about positioning, and positioning that changes constantly on the spot. And you need to have a lot of awareness too, considering all your movement is based on the positioning of all your other teammates, which you aren't in control of, and so you need to be constantly aware of where they're going. So, honestly, I feel like Mercy does deserve to be higher than Alari, yeah. Because you do actually have to think about quite a lot on Mercy. You don't have to aim that much, but you do have to think about a lot. You have to think about positioning very effectively. You have to have good movement mechanics, even if you don't need good aim mechanics. And you need to constantly have amazing awareness, not only to be able to heal and damage boost the right people and go for reses in the right places on the right targets at times at which the reses can't be cancelled, but on top of all of that, if you don't have good awareness, you'll be caught out with no one to Guardian Angel to far too often. So, yeah, you also have to have awareness to know whether you want to be using Guardian Angel to shoot upwards, or shoot sideways, or shoot backwards, or shoot forwards. Multiple different directions you can go flying after using Guardian Angel by pressing space or pressing crouch, and that means that you have to kind of factor in which direction is optimal, and then you have to think, well, if I go this direction, how many people will I have line of sight of, and then how many options will I have for new people to move to, and then from there, can I get from here to here? You have to think ahead a lot on Mercy. You can very rarely just live in the moment. Because if you just think about what's happening right now, rather than what could be happening in a couple seconds on Mercy, then you'll very often get caught out either with no one to Guardian Angel to, because someone just breaks line of sight with you, and suddenly you're alone and you're dead and you've got no movement. Or what will happen is, you might not do that, but maybe you decide to fly a little too high into the air against the enemy soldier, and they pop visor and they melt you before you can hit the ground. So stuff like that, you have to be aware of using aerial cover as well. I think that there is honestly a lot more to Mercy than a lot of people give her credit for, so I think it's fair to say I think Mercy takes more skill than Alari. But she takes more skill than Brig too. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I put it there. You know what? Oh man, I'm convincing myself. I think she's average. I think people seriously underestimate how much skill it takes to play Mercy well. So, yeah. I'm not going to make the out there argument that she's actually Giga Brain and that she's extremely difficult and people just don't get it. Because while she does have an extremely high skill ceiling that a lot of people I don't think are truly able to grasp because they're just too used to the average Mercy just pocketing someone all game, and it looks like, well, they're not doing anything. I could do that. But in fairness, almost every character on this list, there's like a case where you can say, well, they're crazy skillful if you do this. And it's like, yeah, at that point, it's like the list kind of changes quite a lot. So I think I still will put her in average. Moira. And yes, I am putting Moira above Kiriko. Fuck you. Okay, maybe that's a bit mean, but... Oh yeah, Moira is brain dead though. Okay, well, you know what? I should have called that category that. That's too mean. That's mean. I don't mean it to be a dick to you guys. But I mean, come on, if you play Moira, it's true. Like, let's be real. I'm not even saying fuck you for playing Moira. I don't mind having Moiras on my team. If you just want to have fun and relax, go ahead. I don't mind if you want to play Moira. But like, at the end of the day, let's not delude ourselves. Moira does, in fairness, take at least a baseline level of skill to play competently that a lot of people don't appreciate. So, hey, if you are offended by this placement, I'm at least going to play some defense for you here, Moira players. I feel like a lot of people who think Moira takes literally no skill probably don't realize that if they had to sit there and play Moira for a few minutes, they would have fucking awful positioning, they'll be flamed by their tank constantly for not healing, and yeah, you get the point. The reason why is because playing Moira well, obviously there's more to it than this if you want to get to like really good levels of playing Moira, but for the most part, 90% of playing Moira effectively is doing two things. One, having good positioning and being aware of the fact that your heal is one of the shortest range heals in the game, like Alari's, so it means that for you to heal people, you need to be close to them. And two is to know that Fade is your only escape tool, and if you get caught out with your Fade on cooldown, you die. And you should not do that, considering if you don't do that, it's really easy to stay alive almost forever on Moira just by constantly using Fade whenever you're about to die. Fade only has a 6-second cooldown, and it's an instant press the button and get out. So if you use Fade to escape more than you use it to go in, then you will have a lot of success on Moira just because you'll not die. Every single time you're about to die, you'll just fade away, and it's very hard. There's only a few characters in the game that I think can really chase Moira when she fades, especially if she fades into a team and, you know, gets to safety. So you very rarely can actually be chased down and killed after using Fade, and considering it's only got a 6-second cooldown, you're going to spend most of the game, if you're smart about it, with your Fade off cooldown and ready to be used the second someone tries to kill you. Obviously, you can still fade aggressively to come after someone, but I think you should only do it if, one, the person you're going after isn't that threatening, like a Mercy or something, or two, if you think that you've got such a good chance of killing the person you're after that there's like no reason to keep the fade off cooldown. Like, you can use it aggressively to come after them, and it's like, you're going to get the kill. It's like extremely unlikely that things will go badly. Either way, those are still skills. In fact, I think a lot of people don't... Well, I say a lot of people, probably only at lower ranks, but a lot of people don't even realize the reason why the stereotype of Moira not healing existing isn't even a thing of Moira players being dumb, or, well, not necessarily at least, or a thing of Moira not doing enough healing. Moira does a lot of healing, but a lot of the time, they just don't realize that Moira can't heal people that aren't directly in front of them. They don't really conceptualize that. And so a lot of the time, these Moiras at lower ranks that don't, quote-unquote, don't heal, aren't doing it on purpose. They're just like, I'm not doing anything right now. My tank doesn't need healing, and I'm just sitting with the team, just kind of watching the game happen. Let me go fade over to the enemies and start attacking them. And then, all of a sudden, their tank's on low health, and they're like, oh, my tank's on low health? Oh, damn. Well, I'd love to help, but I'm currently on the other side of the map, dueling someone, and I can't really heal you from there. Anyway, yeah, I'm getting a bit off topic, but either way, you get the point. You do have to have good positioning to make sure you're actually around to heal your tank whenever they need it as Moira, or you're at least in range to fade to your tank and heal them if need be. And of course, there is the skill of bouncing orbs. Obviously, a lot of the time it's more luck than skill, but hey, I mean, I've done it every now and then. I've sometimes actually intentionally bounced orbs around multiple corners to chase someone, and sometimes it's really worked. Although, of course, a lot of the time, there is a strong element of luck to it. So, yeah, for me, it's like 50-50. Half the time it's skill, half the time it's luck. So, yeah, I love the mobs. Also, I guess last thing, Coalescence. I know that I'm talking about all the reasons that Moira does take skill rather than doesn't when I put her at the bottom tier, but I guess I'm just trying to, you know, explain this because I feel like it's the common opinion that Moira is the lowest skill character in the game, maybe. Like, probably Moira would be the most popular pick for lowest skill character in the game, if I had to guess, what the Overwatch community generally thinks. So I'm trying to give a defense of her of why she's my second lowest currently rather than my lowest. Lastly, there's Coalescence. Coalescence obviously is a generally pretty easy ultimate to use, but I think that I see so many people use it just to DPS, whereas personally usually try to use it whenever I can see a situation in which my tank wants to push in, because what I can do is I can heal the tank with Coalescence, but on top of that, because I'm behind the tank, I can also, while having the heal beam on them, aim it also at the people in front of them, so I can both damage and heal simultaneously and get both sides of the ultimate to get full effectiveness. I feel like that's an underused application of Coalescence, and I feel like that does take some skill, because you actually have to have the positioning and know-how and all that to make sure that you're in the right spot at the right time, that the enemies are lined up, that your tank knows what you're trying to do and all that. So, yeah. Orisa. Oh, God. Oh, boy. Am I gonna do it, man? Fuck, I think I'm gonna do it, man. Fuck, man, I think I'm gonna do it. Oh, what happened? That was interesting. Okay, let me explain. The reason why I'm so hesitant to do this is because I'd be glad if people forgot about this take, but I'll admit to it. Early on in Overwatch 2's life, and when I say early on, I mean the betas, before the game was even out, I thought Orisa was a high skill, well, not high skill, medium skill tank. Mostly because I didn't play her that much. She wasn't my playstyle, and I personally struggled on her. Now, I didn't realize that was mostly because, well, partially because I was also not doing great on her, but also because my supports, in a lot of the early betas, the supports were having a rough time, and obviously Orisa is only so unkillable because of her supports. And so if your supports are constantly having a rough time, it means you don't really get a lot of help as Orisa, and she isn't very effective. But it felt to me like, oh, I'm dying so often as Orisa because I'm not landing my spears, and if I don't land my spears, then I die on Orisa. Man, it's so difficult, because, like, you go in there, and you have spin, and then okay, I'm alive still. And then it's like, okay, now I have Fortify, okay, I'm still alive. But then, you need to land the spear, and if you don't, you just die. And it's like, man, I understand that it is just one ability, but I mean, if you miss it, you're fucked. But then I actually started realizing, oh wait, like, now that I've actually played Orisa again and played her a bit more, after the games come out, I've started to realize, oh, you really don't have to. Like, you get more for landing the spear, obviously, but as long as you've got competent supports, you get enough healing that you just won't die, and you can just alternate spin, fortify, spin, fortify, spin, fortify, and yeah, you can kind of just steamroll with it. Here's the thing, right? I still know that there are aspects of Orisa's kit that take skill, but a lot of it is just patience, which it's like, it's a weird thing, because it's like, you need to be smart to know that you need to be patient, but you could also just have someone tell you just need to be patient, and you wouldn't need smarts to figure out why that's the case. If you just do that, you're told that, and you do it, you will do well on Orisa. Because seriously, this is the secret to doing amazing on Orisa. No joke, this is all there is to it. You should be pressing your buttons as late as possible. That's it. That's all there is to it. You should not be using javelin spin just to go in faster, then throwing a spear instantly at the first target you see, and then when you're like, oh shit, I'm getting shot, press fortify. And you should almost, emphasis on almost, obviously there's some cases where you should, but almost never use both fortify and javelin spin at the same time. That's something you should basically never do as Orisa. As long as you get that into your head, that you are in a race, well, a reverse race, I guess, to see who can press your buttons slower on tank, who's the last person to give in and finally press their buttons when you're in a tank matchup as Orisa, you will be able to dominate most tanks in the game, except Zarya, of course. But even then, sometimes Zarya even. So, yeah. Yeah, I think I can't really justify putting Orisa anywhere else, because you really do just kind of walk at people. Okay, here's the thing. I want to say, like, there's a smart way to play Orisa, because I see a lot of Orisa hate, and I feel like some of these people don't get that there's smarter ways to play Orisa. But at the same time, I feel like that rings hollow when I see Orisas that truly are brain dead, that truly don't know how to play the character, and they still win enough They don't win all the time. I mean, they never usually win against me because I go Orisa as well, and I know to wait to press my buttons. Or I go Ball and I harass their supports so they never get healed, and then they wonder why they're exploding, and it's because their supports aren't getting any help, and I'm harassing them as Ball. Usually, it's pretty easy to outsmart these Orisa players, and you can really dominate once you know how to do that, but a lot of people just don't know how to outsmart Orisa players, even really dumb ones. And so they can get away with at least getting more wins than they deserve, and so I really can't make an argument for her not being at the bottom. Oh god, I hate to say that. I really want to give some defense of Orisa, because I feel like a lot of the time when people say Orisa brain dead, they kind of don't understand the skill there is to playing Orisa. But I can't lie, every character here obviously takes some skill to play, and the skill the little skill that Orisa takes just really doesn't amount to much. And the few ways you can be more skillful with Orisa end up not mattering a whole lot, as long as you can do the basic shit fine enough. Pharah. Pharah is also going in this tier. Wow, we're getting a lot of these all of a sudden. Yeah, I have to admit Pharah's probably at least here. Okay, I've got a bone to pick with Pharah. I fucking hate Pharah. Pharah is probably my most despised character in this game. But I'm also going to explain why I think she is genuinely very low skill, and it's not just that I hate her. Pharah is a character who... People act like Pharah is high skill because you have to use aerial cover, which, by the way, I never hear anyone use that excuse for Echo or Mercy personally, and you have to use that with Echo and Mercy as well. Because it's a character where you have to manage your fuel. Oh boy, you have to press space intermittently and then occasionally press rocket jump. Oh boy, that is so taxing. And it's a character which is difficult to land shots on because her shots travel extremely slowly, ignoring the fact that they have huge hitboxes and huge explosions. I'm not gonna lie, Pharah is my least played character, so I will leave some room for people to tell me, oh, I'm wrong, but at the end of the day, I have a scarily high win rate on Pharah, even with the few games I have played with her, literally just by spamming from the sky. Literally just by, oh, the enemies are generally in this area, I shall click in this area multiple times, not aiming for any target in particular. Oh hey look, I killed the entire enemy team and none of them can touch me because I'm all the way in the sky with a mercy pocket. And again, I know you can get more skillful, you can launch yourself around with concussive blasts, but even at that point, it's like, okay, you've got slightly above average movement on a character who otherwise, yes, has projectiles, but projectiles with enormous hitboxes and enormous splash damage. You don't have to aim that hard, and an ultimate that's really basic and easy to use. I really feel like there is not a lot of depth to Pharah, and the only depth she does have is already encapsulated by Echo and Mercy, so I don't understand why some people pretend she's high skill. So, yeah, I think it's pretty fair to say she's just a very simple character that doesn't require a lot of aim and doesn't require a lot of brain, so I think that's fair to put her this low. Ramattra. I just realised Ramatra's a tough one. Is Ramattra high skill or not? Because I think that Ramattra overall tests very basic and fundamental skills, but he tests them very rigorously. I think he's here. So, Ramattra... You have to be able to predict movements to use his primary fire effectively, because one of the best things about Ramattra is one of the few tanks that's actually still effective at long range, so long as you can predict movements effectively with his primary fire. As well as that, I think you have to predict movements well to be able to use his Ravenous Vortex well, because I think if you just throw it on people, it's very, very rarely that effective. It's mostly effective when you throw it at people before they use a movement ability, and you cancel the movement ability with them, or you throw it at someone's exit, and so when they try and run away, they're slowed down, and they have a difficult time getting to their exit. I think that's the best way to use it. There's obviously basic line of sight stuff with shields and all that, and being in the right position to be healed by your supports, and awareness and all that, because you only really want to be blocking if you're being healed while blocking, but if you do that, then blocking is really effective with Ramattra, so, you know, obviously a smart Ramattra will mostly be blocking when they have line of sight of their supports, and their supports are going to be healing them. And obviously you have to know when to go in and when not to go in, because you're making that decision whenever you press Nemesis form, usually. So, yeah. But it is all, for the most part, pretty basic stuff. It's just basic stuff that you have to understand thoroughly. Yeah, I think it's fair to put him at average. Okay. Reaper. Oh, okay, there we go. I was thinking, I was kind of like unsatisfied with the idea of having Orisa as the bottom one on this list, but there we go. Reaper. I forgot about Reaper. Yeah, I think Reaper is probably the lowest skill character in this game. Um, I mean, it's quite simple. He takes some aim skill, but he uses shotguns, so let's be real. It's not super aim intensive. You mostly kind of walk at people and click on them, and then when you're about to die, you press a button and get away. And that's mostly the gameplay loop of Reaper. Even using your ultimate is basically just landing on top of a bunch of people and pressing the button. There's not a whole lot to him, but he is also supposed to be a basic character, so I see why it's like that. Um, so yeah, there's just not much to say. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not like Reaper has any advanced movement tech. It's not like he has anything that's super big brain that you have to really think about how to use it. There's a bit of a positioning know-how with his teleport, but even then, it's pretty obvious why Reaper is here. Reinhardt. Oh boy, man. Where do I put Reinhardt, man? Because Reinhardt is like the most basic tank. He's a big guy with a hammer and a shield. And he's got a lot of health, but not a lot of range. And when you see that, you think, oh, this should be a basic, easy character. This should be a brain-dead character. But because this is a game where basically everyone has a gun and you have a hammer, Reinhardt gets bullied by practically every character in the game. And the only way that you can overcome the fact that basically every character in the game can bully you on Rein is to have extensive knowledge of how to predict and play around the movements of every player in the game. At which point, that makes Rein sound like one of the biggest brain characters in the game, when he still fundamentally has an extremely basic kit, which is why he might be one of the single most difficult characters to rank based on skill here. Because, like, technically you really do just have a hammer and a shield and fire strike, and that's it. And that's so basic. But the fact that you have to work with those restrictions in a game where that allows so many people to bully you all game if you don't know what you're doing means, oh boy. I think I'm going to put him at tough. I think I'm going to stick with that. You essentially need really, really good decision making and quick decision making. You need to be decisive and smart and quick when it comes to Reinhardt. But you don't need much mechanical skill, and I guess you do need a lot of awareness. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, the main thing is just decision making, because most of what you're actually doing when it comes to like trying to do things that are things that are difficult, there's nothing really to do except long shot fire strikes, which are mostly just reads on people. For the most part, you are just clicking to swing hammer and right clicking to put up shield, and that's basically all you're doing. Is just the hard part is knowing when to hammer and when to shield and where to move. That's basically the difficult part of Rein, but everything else is really easy, which is again more reason for why he's really hard to rank. But I think I'd rank him as tough. He's actually on the upper end of skill, in my opinion. Certainly when you're in lower ranks, this is absolutely not true. At lower ranks, he's probably all the way down here. Because at lower ranks, you can literally just hold W and keep swinging and keep pinning into the enemy backline, and people are too dumb to actually punish the Reinhardt for overextending, and so you can kind of just get away with swinging your hammer at people and holding W and getting kills off of it, and wiping enemy teams and running them over. But if you're playing against any semi-competent team with DPS that are actually looking at you and actually coming at you from different angles so that you can't shield everyone from one angle, it means that Reinhardt becomes really, really rough to play to play as into a lot of other characters in the game. Roadhog. Oh boy. So I imagine a lot of people are expecting Roadhog to be around here. But of course, Roadhog's received a lot of nerfs, and he's currently considered generally to be the worst character in the game, which I actually disagree with, but we'll get back to that. I agree, kind of similarly to Reinhardt, that honestly, Roadhog is just like Reinhardt at the moment in a weird way, in that he's another tank whose base mechanics are extremely basic. You got a bit of aim to him, but for the most part, it's just you throw hooks at people and you hook them, and then when you're about to die, you press a button and you heal yourself, and that's basically it. But playing a tank with no mobility that has to get really close to do good damage, just like Reinhardt, is really tough, and just like Reinhardt, introduces a whole lot of people you have to be aware of and thoroughly predict to be able to play well as Roadhog. You have to know what kind of things are going to fuck you over that the enemy team has, what the people who have those tools are likely to do with them, and when they're likely to use them. And it means you have to constantly be considering multiple perspectives of the enemy team of how they're going to try and deal with you. And if you don't do that, you're going to be making stupid plays continuously on Roadhog. And I think that's a lot of the reason why people think he's awful right now, when Hog 1 tricks are still making him work, and actually making him work quite well. I think it's because a lot of people just see Roadhog as this character that you hook someone, you kill someone, and now you don't kill someone when you hook someone necessarily, unless you do something a bit more than just hooking them, and that means that now people think, well, that's the one thing he could do, and now he can't do it, so he's awful now. But honestly, I don't agree. I think that... Fuck, man, I'm actually going to do this, aren't I? I think Roadhog is more difficult to play than Ramattra. I don't say that to diss Ramattra. I play a decent amount of Ramattra, and I like Ramattra, but I've been on my Hog arc recently. I've been playing a lot of Roadhog recently, and man, it is stressful, man. Especially with all the people who flame you just because you pick Roadhog. I've had a lot of success with him recently, but it is stressful. You always have to be very, very patient with all of your abilities, and every time you hook someone, it can't just be, oh, you're in my hook range, grab. It has to be, okay, you're playing this character with this mobility ability. I saw you use that this many seconds ago. I think it's still on cooldown. I'm going to hook you, and now instead of instantly shooting, I'm going to take a step forward, and I know you don't have your mobility cooldown, so I can get to you in time, and then I'm going to shoot a melee so I can still one-shot you. Or it's stuff like, I'm going to hook you, and I know I can't one-shot you, but I'm going to turn hook you into this position so that you can't be seen by your supports to be healed, and then I'm going to try and burst you down before you get back to them. You have to really think about the position you're putting the new person in, or the cooldowns they have available before you hook someone now. You actually have to do a lot as Roadhog and be aware of a lot, but unfortunately, from the outside, you don't see it. If you're someone just looking at a Roadhog playing the game, and you might just think they're getting lucky with all the kills if they're doing well. You might just think, oh wow, they're just not getting punished when they should be. But a lot of the times, these good Roadhogs have already thought through every way that they could be punished before they go out for a hook, and they think of how this could go wrong, and try and do everything they can to make sure the timing is perfect so that nothing can go wrong when they hook someone. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that Roadhog, despite the fact that most of his kit is pretty low skill, the actual hurdles you have to overcome and the awareness you need to have to make his kit work at its current strength is actually pretty demanding, to the point where I'd say he's at an average skill level, even though most of his kit seems very low skill.